Hi, and welcome to this live reading from The Waydowns by Robert Rife. And this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Prologue. She's not coming. It's too late now. Blood gushes from his empty arm socket, splattering onto the deck. He hears the pounding and tearing at the hatch cover. It wants the rest of him. Chapter 1. In the Beginning. Thousands of years ago, a spacecraft shrieked into Earth's atmosphere. Crashing, it burrowed deep into the ground, causing considerable discontent to the cargo. The pilots weren't too happy about it either. They would soon become a lot unhappier when the cargo ate them. The crew had no warning of the ravenous attacks, so no one made it to the switch. Another 1,000 or so years later, an exceedingly unlucky tribe of Gitchigoomba Indians discovered part of the intact ship protruding from some faintly glowing rocks. Informed by their medicine man that it was a god, they immediately fell to worshiping it, making sacrifices, and consuming copious amounts of peyote, as was their custom. Alas, damn, and golly gee, all the offerings were in vain, all for nothing. Perhaps the sickly children and old women had not been gutted properly, or there wasn't enough peyote gobbled, or maybe the tribe hadn't jigged and chanted correctly. Perchance the medicine man was a drooling idiot, but for whatever reason, things quite literally went to shit. Most of the tribe became terminally diuretic, and the survivors nakedly waddled away on bowed legs. Descendants of these intestinally cleansed Indians later became known as Indians, and later American Indians, and still later Native Americans. Evolution at work. How progressive. Many years after the fertilizing Gitchingumbians departed, smart and tricky white men came to these parts. And, as evil and clever white men always do, they planted a flag and claimed the land, as was their custom. After accomplishing this bit of thievery, they left to appropriate other properties, as was their custom. More long years passed, and civilization developed, creeping like a benign cancer across the territory. Eventually, a company of surveyors operating out of Roswell, New Mexico, discovered the partially buried starship. After recovering from their own bowel tribulations, the surveyors reported their find to the proper governmental authorities. They were promptly escorted away for rewards and permanently disappeared, as was the custom. Knowledge of extraterrestrial life must be kept from the general populace. It wouldn't be good for them, and it sure as hell wouldn't do their religion any favors. Within days, a plain single-story white building was erected over the spot. It bore an equally nondescript business name, Consolidated Concepts. And a thinly disguised military staff began exploring the starship. They discovered skeletal remains and life. Frozen life. Immediately, experimentation began with the alien technology and new life forms. These experiments did not go well, but they continued. They always do. During the ship explorations, a switch was found by a small group with the intelligence to guess its purpose. Properly horrified and without a clue of how or if it could be nullified, they unfound it. It was to be studied in secrecy by a select few, and recommendations would be made. So, secret studies of an incredibly dangerous control would be made by a select few, followed with recommendations. What a military solution! What a plan! Nothing could possibly go wrong. But it did. Storm clouds of war came in the late 1930s. Those clouds became war, as they always do, and all but one of that select few studying the switch wound up among the honored dead. Except for persistent scuttlebutt, the device was forgotten. But not by the one person who knew it really existed. And where. During those early days of World War II, some frantic weaponry testing of the alien technology produced an absolute cataclysm. This holocaust resulted in the melding together of an unknown number of the ship's lower decks. It had an unspeakable effect on all lab animals within, human staff included. And there was no stopping the consequences. The ensuing mutiny, chaos, and savagery inside those areas of merged and twisted floors resulted in a permanent sealing off. All decks below 19 were not just locked down and forbidden. By wartime military decree, they were not existent. Those floors had simply vanished. It was treason to speak of them. But whispered tales of the lost decks persisted through the years. Those abandoned regions eventually got a muttered and feared name. The Waydowns. The Waydowns, that vast unknown region deep in the bowels of this ancient buried starship, a twisted place teeming with those left behind. That's what the gossips say. They also say it had been made impenetrable. But ways in were found by some who did not tell, and those ways were used to dump failed experiments, living, dead, or undecided. This discarding procedure continues.